Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for today. I work at BirdLife Europe. We are a science-based network of nature conservation NGOs, and we're active in all the EU's 28 member states. And in most of those, we work on the CAP. And I've been following the CAP for the last 3.5 years at BirdLife, but this wasn't the first time that I heard about the CAP. I heard about that long before at university, when I'd heard about the issues with the CAP and its sustainability credentials. And so I decided to look into it more. And that was back in 2013. So I went onto the Commission's website and I saw that the next CAP was going to be greened. So I thought, well, that sounds great. So, you know, big expectations for the previous CAP reform to be greener. And of course, as we can see now, the statistics tell another story. So we really need to avoid another greenwashing of the CAP, because nature is not going to be able to survive another 7 years of intensive agriculture. So today I'm going to talk about where we are at the EU level with the CAP reform, why it's important, what is agreed, and what we can do to take action. So firstly, to talk a bit about why what is agreed at the EU level matters specifically. So the EU level will set the basic minimum rules that all member states have to follow when it comes to spending the CAP subsidies. So will they be able to continue funding intensive harmful monocultures, like the illustration that you see at the top, that does not provide habitats for nature to survive in? Or will we move to a system where the subsidies are dependent on that much better minimum requirements for nature, and there's much higher levels of minimum spending for the environment within the CAP? And this is especially important in member states where there's a very low level of environmental ambition, to force them to have minimum safeguards and minimum requirements. It's also really important in member states where it's difficult for civil society to influence their national governments on this topic. So where are we at in the process? We are entering the final stages of the CAP negotiation at the EU level. So we had the votes in the European Parliament and the European Council last October, which were very disappointing. And we are currently in what's known as the trilogue negotiations, which are between the 3 EU institutions, the European Commission, the European Council, and the European Parliament. And they're trying to reach a final agreement in these negotiations. And these should go on until March this year, but that's at the very earliest that they would finish. Then, following the agreements in the trilogues, there will be a final vote in the European Parliament, and that will be followed by a vote in the European Council, which will happen in May 2021, again at the earliest. And before the Council votes, this is a window of opportunity for the European Commission to withdraw their proposal. They can do this at any time until the Council takes that vote. Then secondary legislation is due in September 2021. This is legislation, for example, on if there's going to be a list of eco schemes, that will be when the Commission releases that. Only after the secondary legislation can member states submit their CAP strategic plans. So this could happen as early as Q4 2021. Finally, the approval of the plans will happen likely in 2022. This is where the Commission has a few months to check member states' plans and to approve the spending. Finally, it will come into force in January 2023. But like I was alluding to, delays in this timeframe are quite likely. So finally, what can we do? After the disappointing votes in the European Council and the Parliament last year, 27 EU-level NGOs sent a letter to the Commission asking them to withdraw their CAP proposal. However, so far the Commission has not done so, as proceeding with the trilogue negotiations. And the Council has been publishing some of the trilogue negotiation documents on their website, which does confirm that there is a weakening happening and a very low ambition in terms of what is likely to be the final agreement. For example, the eco schemes are being widened out to include a lot of non-environmental topics or low ambition environmental topics that are unlikely to require real changes to practices on the ground that we need to see. So in order to try and judge whether what is being agreed is going to be compatible with the Green Deal, the European Environmental Bureau, another NGO, has set 10 tests for a Green Deal compatible farming policy. And these will help us to scrutinise how the trilogue negotiations are shaping up compared to what is needed, and also to judge the final agreement when it's reached. So in the meantime, whilst the trilogues are still on, we still think that the most objectively right thing to do is to withdraw the cap, and we will keep up the scrutiny on all of the European institutions for the decisions that they take.
Great, and thank you so much for keeping time. Next, we have Matteo Metta, who will be talking more from a national perspective. He is a policy analyst with ARC 2020. Matteo is also a researcher at the University of Pisa and Ghent, and he is coordinating the project at ARC 2020 to analyze the CAP reform and also to look at the strategic plans. So over to you, Matteo.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I will try to be very brief to give you a short update on the CAP strategic plans. I hope to meet you in the breakout room so we can go more into depth. You might remember very well in 2018, when the Commission put forward its proposal for a reform. The CAP was heavily criticized for the one-size-fits-all approach, for the top-down bureaucracy from Brussels, and simplification was very high on the agenda. So the CAP strategic plans, these national plans, was the idea of delegating more responsibilities and powers to the member states to decide on a number of very controversial reforms. For instance, the capping, as we have been listening this morning, the abolishment of historical entitlements, the conditionalities to make them more enhanced, a new way to deliver direct payments through eco schemes. There were a lot of important decisions shifted from the Commission to the member states. We also have to consider the common market organization reform, the reform of the producer organizations. There are many areas that we need to explore because the CAP strategy plans at national level will make a difference at European, national and regional level. There are many possibilities to reform the CAP through these national strategic plans, and the member states are currently designing them. All materials, contacts, events, the minutes of the events, or the overall roadmap of each national process should be available online and accessible to all, in theory. But sometimes this is not the case, so we need to be very, very precise and demanding on this important condition. Here you can see a very generic roadmap for how to get to the new CAP strategy plans. So firstly, we should know that every member state has to appoint a managing authority and a monitoring committee who is responsible of leading this process. Most likely in regionalized countries like Italy, France, Germany, Spain, and so on, there might be managing authorities at national and regional level. What's still unclear is whether the regional authorities have to go through all this process, or they just have to report, they have to just do some of these steps. The process as it is displayed in this slide seems linear, but actually we should be aware that there are a lot of loops and back and forward exchanges. So firstly, the member states should identify the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats for all the matters that concern the CAP. these WOTs have to be based on the most updated evidence, and possibly they should be consulted with stakeholders. Based on this SWOT analysis, the member states have to identify the needs that have to be addressed in the CAP strategic plans. Not only do these needs have to be identified, but they need to be prioritized, which means clustering them together, and they need to be ranked, which means classifying them according to a criteria. Now, the co-legislators are trying to get rid of the ranking, and most likely not for technical reason, but for political, but we can discuss on that. But it's an important activity. So based on this, the need assessment, the managing authorities have to design interventions, set up targets for 2027 and annual milestone to get there. And before submitting the CAP strategy plans to the Commission, they need to do an ex-ante evaluation assessment to check that the plan is sound and get the opinion from the strategic environmental assessment. So in this process, most of the member states at the moment are designing the interventions. We still have not seen the need assessment published, but we hope that they will be soon uploaded so we can analyze them. And yeah, we expect some possibility of influence throughout this process, either through the consultations or through the Commission recommendations or through the Commission services like the CAP networks that can steer the CAP strategy plans towards the new Green Deal, as well as during the submission and approval process. So ARC, just to complete, ARC will be monitoring this process. We do hope to get your involvement on board as well. And if you want to read more on how the process evolved in 2020, you can check out this publication, which is available online, and we hope to keep in touch with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Matteo. Next, we have Martina Comparelli from Fridays for the Future Italian chapter, talking about the campaign that really gained momentum and around the withdrawal of the CAP. And so she is a student of climate change and health at Yale University, graduated in December 2019 from the International Development and Humanitarian Emergencies program at the London School of Economics. And she is very much, she has been involved in the Withdraw the CAP campaign from the beginning. So over to you, Martina. And again, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just sharing my screen. Let's see if I manage. Can you see that? Are you seeing my screen? Yes. Okay. So here you go. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm a bit of a technological grammar. As Mira said, my name is Martina. I'm from Italy. I'm from Fridays for Future Italy. And I've been involved with many others in the Withdraw the CAP campaign. This is just a snapshot, and I try to be as quick as I can.
Sorry, Martina, your screen disappeared for some reason.
Okay, just give me a sec. Let's try again. I'm so sorry. Can you see it now?
Yes.
How about now?
Yep, perfect. Great.
Okay, great. Okay, this is just a snapshot of the campaign, what we do, what we ask. So basically it started with when we knew about what was going on in the parliament and what that they put the vote earlier and what have they done with the draft. And actually it all was born from the thread that Harriet posted. We saw it and we thought that we had to do something. So we started with the Vote This CAP Down hashtag during the vote at the parliament. Of course, they voted for, but we think that it had some success because some MEPs actually didn't vote or voted against, even if their parties previously thought to vote for. So that was a big result, even if, of course, it wasn't enough. So after that, we decided to write a letter in which we asked to withdraw the CAP. The letter keeps being signed It has more than 70,000 signatures up to now. And we also opened some social media account and actually started with an actual campaign on social media and started just going with it with more organizations. So just not Fridays for Future and much more people. Everyone was welcome and everyone is still welcome and needed. After that, we tried to step up our game by meeting some commission members, and we started the meetings in December 2020, and we're now going on. So what we ask is to withdraw the cap. Why? Because at the beginning, we just were thinking it's a systemic mess. It works at a system level, and all the attention given to the first pillar, all the monies are there. So we just have to ask for withdrawal. Now it's even worse because the eco schemes have been watered down, and so many other. I'm sorry for the cat. And there have been so many other expansion, and it's just not working. It's just not working. It's something that goes totally totally against the Green New Deal goals, that goes against the Farm to Fork goals, that goes against the Paris Agreement. So it's just crazy that they're going through with that. And what we're trying to do is both trying to reach out to farmers and farming organizations at the international level. And for example, as Fridays for Future Italy, we're trying to do more meetings with unions and with farming organizations. We're trying to do some social media campaigns, and we're trying to create synergies with other NGOs and groups and movements which are interested in the matter, because we think that the more the merrier, and we need all our strengths in this period, in this moment where we can strike on the streets. So we're trying to organize some social media action to talk about it, to make people aware of it, because we need more people aware of the fact that agriculture is really something that includes us all, and that farmers are really suffering and are the first one that are going and are suffering because of the climate crisis. And this is something very important for Italy, because we are a country risking desertification, and we really need to protect our farmers and our soil and our biodiversity in order to save our farmers and to save ourselves too. So this is what we're doing at the moment, and at the same time we're also supporting the WeMove petition. This was just a snapshot. I'm looking forward to talk with you in the breakout rooms, and let me know if you want to do something with us, of course.
Thank you so much, Martina, and it's always good to get this energy going. So next we have Alex Datema, president of BoerenNatuur in the Netherlands. He will be giving the farmer's perspective. BoerenNatuur is an organization of 10,000 farmers who work together to enhance nature, landscape, biodiversity on their farmlands. The farmers are organized in regional cooperatives and work together for nature conservation. So over to you, Alex, 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you for this fine introduction. Thanks for the invitation to give a short, to give me the ability to give a short perspective of the farmers, how I as a farmer look at it. I am a dairy farmer from the Netherlands. I have a very plain dairy farm with about 100 cows on 70 hectares of land and about 15 hectares of meadow bird protection. And as said, I am the president of Farmers and Nature, BoerenNatuur. And that's an umbrella organization of the 40 cooperatives. In the Netherlands, we organize the agri-environmental scheme in a collective approach. That means that the individual farmer can only join the scheme when he is part of a collective. So in the collective, you have to see as a group of farmers. So if you want to join the agri-environmental scheme, you have to be part of a group of farmers, and we organize that in 40 collectives around the whole country. What we see in the last 5 years, because we do it now for 5 years, is that there is a big change in attitude how the farmers look at the environmental schemes if you more or less make them work together. Because we think if you want to create a good habitat for meadow birds or farmland birds, you cannot do that on the level of a parcel or on the level of a farm. You have to do that on the level or a greater area. So the farmers have to work together. And in our system, they only can join the scheme if they work together. So they have to make a plan together. They have to talk to each other how they want to do how they want to carry out the measurements, which measurements are taken by which farmers. And we see that they are very keen in reaching goals now. In the past, they had just one contract as one farmer, and they were very keen on taking out the measurements very carefully because that was where they get paid for, and now they get paid for the results. So you see now that they are keen to reach the goals that we have, and that makes them think about how we can do measurements better, how we can organize the whole scheme better, and how we can work better together. And I think this is the most important change we have reached in the last 5 years. And if you try to translate that to the new CAP, then I have to say, well, I'm not that pessimistic about the new CAP that I heard from some other people this day. I'm not in favor of withdrawing this CAP. I do think that the CAP we are talking about now is not changing fast enough if you look at what we need. But the new CAP has to meet new goals. We are talking about climate, biodiversity, environment, landscape, and all that kind of things. The old CAP was rewarding ownership of land, and the new CAP should reward if farmers do the good things for climate, for biodiversity, for environment, and for landscape. But that asks a big adjustment from farmers. So you cannot make those changes too fast. I think what is happening in Brussels now is maybe going too slow, but it can be done faster, but not that fast. So the most important thing is that if you want to help farmers to do things different on their farm, you have to challenge them. And I have always the feeling that the EU from Brussels wants to push farmers to do things, and I think it's better to challenge them. So if you look at the new CAP, we have to slowly move from lower flat rates to higher budgets for the ecosystems. And you can do that in a longer period, but it should be clear to the farmers that in 6 years or in 10 years that the flat rate will go maybe until €0 per hectare, but eco services will be paid very good. So then the farmer knows I have to look at my farm. What can I do on my farm if you're talking about climate, biodiversity, environment, and landscape? And if the perspective is clear for the farmer in which direction the CAP is moving, he can act on that. And I think the direction of the changing in the CAP is clear. From my perspective, it should go a little bit faster, but we are going in the right way. So I think we have to look forward to the CAP with a clear mind and saying that flat rate is ending. We should put our minds to green-blue services and challenge the farmer to take his part of the green-blue services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Next, we have Martine Lines, who's the chair of the Nature Friendly Farmers Network in the UK. And he is a farmer from Cambridgeshire, UK. He mainly grows combinable crops in his family farming business, and he's moving more towards regenerative farming systems that aim to deliver a range of habitats across the farmlands to increase the benefits of biodiversity. So Martin, you have 5 minutes.
Lovely, thank you very much. I'll just get this to play. So my name is Martin Lines. For me, it's been a journey over the last 15 years of how do we use public support and putting the biodiversity back into the landscape, and how it enhances our business by having those pollinators and predatory insects. I'm not an organic farmer, but I now recognise we need those ecosystem services within our landscape to deliver productivity from our cropping systems. And actually, it's been a journey over to understand how we do that and where those bugs and pollinators need to fit into my cropping farming system. So we dedicate parts of our farm to biodiversity. We get public support from that. And under the current, which is the system we're currently leaving, is that area-based, is that ecosystem delivery, and actually makes a far more profitable business for ourselves in delivering the right option in the right place for the right outcomes, and it makes our business far more viable. Like me, there's many farmers out there who felt they didn't have a voice. Right across the UK, that we did some independent research, and the farmers felt they didn't have a voice. We have very large farming organisations and stakeholders that are campaigning to the stability of what we got now, and the stability of just an area-based payment or very slow, gradual change. Many of us accept, and we can demonstrate that actually a different approach is far better, and there's a new way of bringing those people together. So what we did is 3.5 years ago, we set up this nature-friendly farming network for farmers across the UK, whether they're organic, conventional, large, small, it didn't matter, but you want to deliver ecosystems and habitat and wildlife across your farm landscape. And you want to speak loudly about that and be proud for what you deliver. But we also need the public and policy and government support in helping us deliver that, and using public's money to help us deliver that and have a healthy food system that respects the produce we produce in a fair market. And what we recognise, we can be really highly successful in delivering that positive message to the policymaker and to the individual farmers, because as you say, those farmers really need support from other farmers on this journey of transition to their mindset of output and production and little care for many for the environment, to this balanced approach of how we manage our landscape, put back the biodiversity we've lost, clean up the water systems, produce the healthy food we can from our landscapes in a very different way, and a very more joined up approach, and not separate nature and environmental payments away from productivity payments. The two go hand in hand and can complement each other really well. And actually, if we don't do anything, we're going to risk carrying on in the same old system we've got, seeing the same old nature declines and poor landscape that we have. And actually, the profitability for many farming businesses will continue to struggle. We need to rebalance about who gets the rewards from the public purse. So coming together, we can achieve more, demonstrate to other farmers, to the general public, the consumer who's buying my food produce, but also we're using their taxpayers' money to reward the delivery we can across the landscape, and how we join that up, not on single farms, but as a cluster in a water catchment, delivering better public access and better cleaner air and cleaner water. So together we can achieve more and doing more. And we have demonstrated that in the last couple of years, talking to governments and actually showing them that there are farmers already doing this, that it's not a big step and a big change. So I see many farmers as is like a starling. As an individual bird, they can be quite noisy and messy. Put a spotlight on them and they're quite a pretty bird, but they get lost in a landscape. They don't stand out. They're not heard loud enough. Let's bring them together, and when they dance and swirl around in the sky, you sit up and take notice. And that's what we aim to achieve with the network, and hopefully we can connect with other organisations across Europe and across the world, so we can demonstrate to governments and to consumers we have a different way. We can produce healthy food and healthy landscapes. We can tackle our biodiversity and our climate crisis together alongside our business production, and have viable farming businesses, viable landscapes, and look forward to having some questions later.
Thank you so much. Actually, you put us ahead of time because you finished before time, so that's great. I hope you got to say everything you needed to. Okay, next we have Verena Günther, a campaign coordinator from Good Food, Good Farming, so one of the co-organizers of this event. Verena is European coordinator for this network, and the network itself is a diverse network of actors, from farmers to environmental NGOs to consumer groups, campaigning for better EU policies on food and agriculture. And together with other civil society organizations from over 20 member states and at the EU level, they are on the streets, in the farms and markets, and on social media. And they had an action month in October and have many other important moments that they focus on. But over to you in 5 minutes.
Thank you for the introduction, and hello to everybody. And I pretty much like the image of the swarm of birds getting loud, and I recognized also our ideas there. Thank you for that, Martin. So I'm quite happy to see so many people and present to you what we're doing with Good Food, Good Farming to build alliances, to influence the political processes that we have heard about today, the CAP reform that Harriet and Matteo have explained so well what's going on. So Good Food, Good Farming was launched in 2018 when the whole new reform process started by an alliance of civil society organizations. And since then we bring together organizations and groups, but also coalitions of civil society organizations from the national level and also the EU level. And all those actors want to come together to put pressure on the decision makers, also at both levels, at the national and the European level, those who decide on the CAP reform. And our main moment, as was mentioned already, is October. So between the 1st and the 31st of October, we have lots of activities in many places all over Europe, and you can see a few pictures on the screen. So over the last 3 years, so since our start in 2018, we have mobilized hundreds of thousands of citizens that took action and hundreds of organizations from over 20 countries that participated in the action days and in other activities. And even though last year for us was quite complicated and challenging, as it was for many, there were a lot of actions happening in October. So it was 82 events that were organized in 16 countries that were adapted to the new situation. And still there were protests on the street, there were markets, there were visits on farms or workshops, and also online events like conferences or seminars. And additionally, thousands of people joined us online with activities on social media to voice their demands to members of the European Parliament mainly, who were deciding in October, as it was also already mentioned by Martina on the WithdrawTheCAP campaign. So we were also active together with them to raise our voices there. And during our actions, we bring together different sectors of society, like farmers, bringing them together with consumers, also environmental activists or global solidarity or trade movement actors, and other actors linked to food and farming, like beekeepers, shepherds, or bakers. And the idea behind this is that we want to bring people together who produce food and also those who consume food, because we think that marching side by side or sharing food and conversations, we can together much better push for the change that we want to see and develop ideas for a better policy that can be supported by the whole of society. And we, apart from the single actions and in the many different places, we also organize common actions. Like this one, you can see that was organized in front of the council building in Brussels, so where the national ministers meet and debate on agricultural policies. And for these kind of events, maybe in person like it was back then, or online like it had to be, where we came together on social media last year. We carry the voices from the villages, the towns, and the capitals in the different countries active in the Good Food, Good Farming umbrella to the places at the European level where decisions are taken. And through these common actions, we amplify their demands and speak with a stronger voice together. So I think that with so many active people and actions organized in many different places and a lot of ideas swirling around in the campaign, that there is no better proof that people care about the food that they eat and want to have a say in the political decisions made that influence the food that ends up on their tables, and that they are getting active together with farmers and other food producers who already live the solutions and have a lot of ideas of how policies can be better. So yeah, reminding again of what we've heard earlier today, that we have no time to lose, but we have to get stronger and increase our power, our forces to for the change. Just the call out to you to join us or join any other activities and raise your voices for change. Thank you, and looking forward for discussion.
Thanks so much. Next, we have Aurélie Catallo, the coordinator for Autre PAC from France. Aurélie has been a coordinator with the platform since March 2017. Prior to that, she worked for the regional direction of the French Ministry of Agriculture. She graduated with a double MS in European Affairs at Sciences Po and at Wilhelms Universität in Münster, Germany, and also holds an advanced master's in sustainable agriculture and rural development public policies from Agro-Paris Tech. So Aurélie, the floor is with you in 5 minutes.
Hi everybody, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm indeed going to present to you the work of the French coalition Pour une autre PAC as regard the CAP strategic plan. So what is Pour une autre PAC? Pour une autre PAC is an interbody association composed of French NGOs that has been created in order to develop a common reflection and common actions among those member organizations on the topic of the reform of the common agricultural policy, and we work currently more precisely on the CAP strategic plan of France. Our objective is to push for as much ambition as possible in the reform of the CAP. That includes, of course, as much ambition as possible for the environment, but also for other topics such as access to food, such as animal welfare, support to small and medium farms, and so on. Nowadays, Pour une autre PAC gathers 45 member organizations, and what is very important for us is that we mix up farmers organizations and citizens organizations. For instance, environmental NGOs, animal welfare NGO, international solidarity organizations, and citizens consumers NGOs. And what we do all together within this coalition can be summarized into 3 types of activities. The first one is what I call the forum. With that, I mean that we created a space where we can create a common, an internal cohesion and common positions and a common knowledge about the common agricultural policies among the 45 member organizations. Secondly, we do advocacy work. That's quite classical. So the idea there is that we push our propositions, those who have been agreed by the 45 member organizations, to French decision makers working on the CAP. And finally, we work on citizen mobilization, i.e. we try to engage citizens in the CAP reform process and make their voice heard. We think that advocacy and campaigning are two activities that are really much intertwined and that complement each other. As regards BoerenNatuur, on the one hand, we do advocacy. It means that we are one of the stakeholders that is officially consulted by the French government on the CAP reform, the preparation of the CAP strategic plan. And in thus, we participate in meetings, we send a lot of notes with our propositions, we have very detailed and concrete inputs to the whole process. And on the other hand, we also try to develop the campaigning activity. And for instance, since the beginning of January this year, we launched a campaign called, in French, Basta les profiteurs de la PAC. And I'm going to try to explain to you the aim of this campaign. The aim of the campaign is to introduce at the same time the fact that big agri-food companies are the true benefiters of this CAP in the way it works today, but also at the same time that this situation must stop. This is what the title of the campaign says. And why do we try to do both activities at the same time? We really think that both have advantages. For the advocacy work, it shows that you are acknowledged as a stakeholder that has as much expertise and as much legitimacy than the traditional stakeholders. But it also showed, in particular to the eyes of the minister, that you have a different opinion that is well justified, and then you force the minister to choose which camp he's going to favor. He cannot pretend that there is a consensus. He can't hide behind this fake consensus. He must choose, he or she, sorry. And as regards the campaigning activities, it allows us to say that neglecting us is not even an option. We are there, we are vocal, we are seen, including by media, and we just cannot be ignored. And finally, with campaigning, it also is a good illustration to show the ratio of power. We can say that we represent a lot of people, that we are numerous, that we are diversified, and that we are very much determined also. Finally, I'm going to present to you what it allows to achieve when you do both activities, but also what it takes as efforts to do that. Well, of course, it requires quite a lot of resources, financial and human resources, but it also requires creativity because we never have enough resources, and we also need to find good ideas that can please all of our member organizations, but also can please various types of audience. And it requires thus a lot of exchange between the various organizations and a lot of work. But it also has amazing positive effects, so you shouldn't be turned down by the efforts you have to do. And what are the positive effects is that it allows to create a common narrative, a common banner under which to rally. Of course, for the member organization, but also for the various citizens that are touched by your messages. It's also allowed to give more visibility to your messages, including amongst media. And finally, and I think it's very important, it empowers citizens. It motivates them to do whatever they can to tell their decision makers that they have an opinion on the common agricultural policy and that this opinion should be taken into account. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Aurélie. Next, we have Márta Pozsonyi from Slow Food and StudCoop in Romania, speaking to us on campaigning for good food and good farming in Romania. Excuse me, give me a minute. So Márta is a mother of 3 children, is a cook, is a producer, an activist, and a food educator. with over 12 years of experience in food education in particular, developing sustainable food programs in production, consumption, and food tourism, teaching about where food comes from, how it's produced, and working closely with local communities, schools, farmers, and NGOs. So over to you, Márta. 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with you. I will share with you a little bit our story, actually. Our main focus in the last 12 years was to educate children, and it still is one of the most important goals. Our education programs were concentrating always on multiple aspects of food. First, we show where food comes from. Secondly, we discover the people, the products, the fields, and the tastes of the food. And then we learn how to protect them and work and live closely with the whole environment for a sustainable future. Because we believe that besides safeguarding all this and without giving to the next generations the general knowledge about food, our work in production, for example, would not be sustainable. Since the beginning, we created the first school gardens in Romania. This happened in 2009. So for the first time in a school, in a courtyard of a school, a garden was created where children learned about where food comes from. This was followed by the first gastronomic summer camps, and the rest just came. I mean, traditional markets, visits to producers. Let me show you, sorry. Taste education in schools, cooking, youth meetings. I mean, we do this full time, all the time. In the last 12 years, we all the time, we always came up with something new. But, and there is a but, because for many years we worked with children, we realized that we have to grow a little bit. I mean, we have to address also adults. And 2 years ago, we attended for the first time Good Food, Good Farming campaign, with a very, very condensed program in October, which actually was repeated last year in 2020. But after the first year, we realized how much need of awareness is and a need for information in the food sector, and also, or especially in agriculture, because people not always relate food with agriculture. Maybe it's just some food in a plate. Well, it's not like this. Last year was special, of course, because of the pandemic, but we had to change sometimes our big plan. We had a whole month plan with activities, events, all kind of stuff, but we still managed to accomplish our program. First, we went back to the market where 2 years ago we had a campaigning with producers and consumers over there. Of course, because of the restrictions, we couldn't do it like last time. We couldn't give out flyers, we couldn't write messages to the European Parliament, but there was still the talking, and people appreciated to still find out about the CAP. I mean, there are still so many people who doesn't know what it's the Common Agriculture Policy. They don't know what it's climate change. So many things people still don't, but many of them appreciate to find out. Another successful event during our Good Food, Good Farming campaign was a tasting in the vineyard, a place which is not always visitable. I mean, people just buy the wine, but they don't know the story behind the wine. They don't know the people, the fields. They don't have the direct connection with the wine and the terroir, let's say it this way. We started the month actually with the press conference, where we explained to the journalists and through them, of course, to the general public about the Good Food, Good Farming European Action Days and the new CAP, which we were hoping for, of course. And bringing people together was one of our main focus in the campaign. As an overall idea of our work, it is that it's very important to study, to research. It's good to learn, but I believe it's more important to share and to involve people. And I see now that many of us mentioned this, I mean, emphasize the importance of this. Because we have to involve people to form active communities which are involved in the everyday life in the food system, actually, by making their choices and with awareness about how this affects the future of our food and our planet, actually. And why is important the campaigning in Romania? I will refer to Romania now, but this might fit also other countries. We are used. I mean, we accept that others decide for us. People need to know that we have this option to express our presence, let's say, or our existence, or our wish for a better future in the food system. What we did, actually, as I mentioned already a few times, but I will emphasize this, is to bring people together from different sectors of the food system. Producers, beekeepers, consumers, teachers, representatives of local authorities. I mean, at different events or activities, we came with the information about food production, about food biodiversity, diversity and biodiversity, climate change, CAP. We visited vineyards. We made flash mobs, tasting, disco soup. We organized also a disco soup on World Food Day. And this happened in one of our schools, our main partners. And we were emphasizing the local production, the food variety, and food waste, of course. Also, the time is up.
The time is up, Márta. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have more time probably at the break.
Yes, in the breakout sessions.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, and I love what you're doing with children, especially. Next, we have Sommer Ackerman from Extinction Rebellion in Finland, who will be talking about the work being done on the CAP reform campaign. Sommer is a 24-year-old environmental activist from the UK but living in Finland. She is a part of the Elokapina, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, which is XR Finland, and the WithdrawTheCAP campaign. She's been involved in multiple sustainable farming projects across Europe. So Sommer, over to you, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll now try to share the screen. 1 second. Hopefully you can all now see this lovely picture of me, and it should go into presentation mode. Yes, great connection in Finland. So while that loads, hopefully you can see it now. Yeah, my name is Ackerman, and yeah, I'm living in Finland, but I'm originally from the UK, and I moved here from Germany about 1.5 years ago. I'm a member of Fridays for Future and Extinction Rebellion, and I'd say I'm quite active in the WithdrawTheCAP campaign. However, I don't really see myself as a part of any specific group, but more of a personal entity for climate justice. Elokapina is the name of Extinction Rebellion in Finland. Elo means life and Kapina means rebellion. And the reason I'm interested in this movement is because I believe civil disobedience is now necessary in order to make the changes needed in this current society where economic fit is before the climate. I first heard about the CAP when I saw the Vote This CAP Down campaign on social media. At the time, Elokapina was looking to make a new action and hear ideas of potential protests or campaigns. I joined in with the social media campaign, and that led me to the Withdraw the CAP movement. I felt very interested in the CAP because of my background working, living, and volunteering on organic farms across Europe. At the time of Elcapina's involvement with the CAP, I was working on a farm, and that kind of motivated me to get more interested. When the Withdraw the CAP campaign started, we focused heavily on the EU and the Commission, but I knew that something had to be done on a national level. And even though I'm British, I still live in Finland and believe that, yeah, change can happen wherever, on a level or just on where you are. So I wanted to work with Elcapina to come up with some demands for the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, which is also known as the MMM. And while discussing this with them, the demands became apparent, and I'll read those to you now. You can see them on this slide. 1. Elcapina demands that the Ministry of Forestry and Agriculture publicly acknowledges the truth that the EU's Common Agricultural Policy, CAP, reform is not in line with the Paris Agreement, the EU Climate Emergency Declaration, or the European Green Deal. Thus, Finland must make agricultural support policy much more ambitious. 2. If the ministry disagrees with the previous statement, Elcapina demands Finland to show evidence that the national CAP strategy plan is fully in line with the Paris Agreement and the Green Deal. A bit wordy, but translated from Finnish. And here are some pictures from the action. After this, I decided that the best course would be to go on hunger strike. I felt like for me to participate in a roadblock wouldn't be necessary. I wanted to do something quite personal and touching, and it was safe and consulted with doctors, and it wasn't advised that anyone who shouldn't participate. But yeah, the whole not eating and agriculture seemed to go hand in hand and be a good kind of discourse for this. While I was on hunger strike, Elcapina also held a roadblock outside the ministry. The idea of the roadblock was to create a message to the ministry, but also raise media attention. The roadblock ended up being a green light action, which means no arrests, because of how it turned out, the success of it. However, we were prepared to escalate the block depending on the response to the action. 2 of the ministers of agriculture ended up coming to speak to some of the representatives of Elcapina while the block was being held. Some of the answers were a bit unsatisfactory, kind of political, but it ended well with an agreement that the ministry and the public should work together. And as a result of this answer, I decided to end my hunger strike. It seemed to kind of get the message to the ministers, and I didn't think that continue was a success. I slept outside in an open tent in the city in order to be transparent and be able to talk to anyone that asked me or the people from Elcapina helping to talk to about the CAP. Another reason that Elcapina felt it was important to hold these actions was to get in the news. There was hardly any information about it in the media, and that felt a bit disappointing. The actions reached the media, however, it felt that, yeah, because of the police presence, there was a heavy police presence at the action, and we informed the police that we were going to be there, but the media kind of heavily focused on the police presence and that part of the action. And this was because in the autumn rebellion, there was an action held where police violence occurred. People were pepper sprayed in the face during an action. And this was the first big action after this occurred. So the media wanted to talk about the last action and the police rather than talk about CAP and the issues with CAP, even though we prepared a lot of information for them. And there was no talk of the CAP in Finland. So that's why we wanted to do this. That's why Elcapina wanted to talk about CAP, to kind of get Finland to talk about more. On this, I reached out to different NGOs on behalf of Elcapina to ask if we could work together for a new campaign to ask Finland to make a better and more transparent CAP. Right now, Luontoliitto, The Organic Farmers Association has been great help for explaining how Finland could make a better CAP, especially for biodiversity and for farmers. At the outside Parliament with others from Ellokapina, but we hope to be able to work on a new action to put pressure on the ministry. And I suppose I don't know how long I talked for, but it would be great to talk to you in the breakout room, and that's kind of it from me.
Thank you so much, Sommer. So just on time, and yeah, sorry what you had to go through organizing all that. So next, and this is our last speaker for this session, is Annemarie Botzki, Senior Campaigner for WeMove in Europe. Before joining WeMove, where Annemarie leads the German language campaigns, she covered European energy politics in Brussels and London as a journalist and reported on the UN climate negotiations. After learning about the extent of climate breakdown, she quit reporting to support 2 solar startups in Berlin. So over to you, Annemarie.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to the whole team of Good Food, Good Farming and BirdLife. I'm really impressed with the conference. I think this is such an important day today, and thank you very much for also inviting WeMove. So WeMove is an online petition platform, but we do much more than online petitions. Here are some of the examples. We start generally with a petition, but this obviously is supposed to lead to offline action as well. We are convinced that in Europe, the people really hold the power, and that we need to amplify their voices and bring them to the decision makers, as many of you have stressed in the presentations today. And what our digital actions really allow us to do is that we can amplify the individual messages and really come together and bring the messages to decision makers. And we generally pick campaigns that are kind of addressing the root cause of systematic problems. And then obviously we want to change the narrative and change policies. Here are just some examples of what we do. We've been very much involved also in the glyphosate campaign. And this is just a stunt demonstrations and the meetings with policymakers. Other things we do is also commission, for example, independent surveys. We've just done that with a different topic, which is on gene drives. Maybe some of you have heard about the technology. This is being discussed tomorrow at the UN preparatory meeting. So we've commissioned, for example, a poll on this to see what Europeans really think about this issue. And we do other things like social media actions and videos, and this very much in collaborations with partners, many of whom are here today. On the CAP, we were really wondering, like, does this year, after the big outcry in October, are people still interested in this after the vote is kept down in October and November? It was like really in the media and on social media. So we kickstarted this campaign, this petition, WithdrawTheCAP, in January, and we launched it on the day that Good Food, Good Farming did their action day in January. And it became a very successful petition and campaign. People really engaged with it. It was one of the best ones in the last few months. Like, we had a lot of engagements and actions. So what this petition allows us to do is we have the digital infrastructure to use. Like, as you can see, we have 156,000 signatures. So these people are very much interested in the topic and they want change. So we can then address these people, the signees from all over Europe, and ask them to participate in digital actions or in offline actions as well. In this case of the CAP, what we've done is combine this petition with a Twitter action. So we asked the signees to then share a Twitter message with von der Leyen, who's being addressed here, to withdraw the CAP, because obviously there is still the chance that she can still withdraw it. It's politically obviously difficult, and without a lot of pressure from all of us, it will not happen. So thousands of people actually tweeted to her. And this was the kickoff of the campaign that we've done. And people, as I mentioned, are very interested, and we're just developing now new steps and a new strategy for the next few months. These are just some examples of what the escalation of a campaign can look like. You can see on the bottom, there's we, for example, worked very much on the green recovery, on the package that no money goes to fossil fuels of the big bailout packages. So we placed ads as well. No public money for polluters is what you can see on the bottom here, but also a lot of stunts in front of the commission buildings and meeting policymakers. And right now we're looking into how to address von der Leyen in creative ways over the next few months with the people that have signed this, and also engage obviously small farmers and maybe initiate some citizens meetings with policymakers. Yeah, this is it from me, and I will share the link of the petition in the chat with you, and please have a look, have a read through to see if this aligns with you, and please share it widely, and please get in touch if you would like to partner up and have some ideas how to map out the next few months. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Annemarie. And so with that, this very interesting and rapid panel session came to a close. We now invite you to see the links in the chat, which will take